We're not live, are we? Still saying scheduled. Good evening. How are we this evening? I'm unsure if we're live because the live has not appeared on the top screen yet. I'm just wondering if we are or not. This could be. I have no idea. We'll bring Paul in and he can tell me if that's right. Paul Capaldi. I don't know what's going on.
We are definitely live. Honestly. But what I'll do is I'll check by going onto my phone and then clicking on that.
We could restart this because is it on live?
It is. Yeah. We're live.
All right. Let's pretend that never happened. Paul Capaldi's going to disappear, and I'll introduce him again.
Okay.
Good evening. Sorry about that. There's usually a live thing comes up in the top corner of the screen, and it's not appeared. It's still just saying scheduled. So I would just like to say hello to everybody, and I hope we're all well. Tonight's video comes to us by CL Lightfoot Haulage, Fleming Homes, Tweedside Commercials, Jock Boxbook, Truck Rentals, STS, Stephen Darlin, St Boswell's Moors, John Jackson Fencing Contractors Limited, Red Campers, and me, Greg Blair. I've got a few other sponsors, but we'll leave them for another night. We've got a few guests on tonight. As ever, I'll be joined by Paul Capaldi, who will appear now.
Side of the screen. There we go. Yeah, definitely we were live, but I do apologise. Sometimes there's that delay.
Yeah. Well, we're on now, and it appears that you're in my workshop.
Well, it does, doesn't it?
Are you doing the other bike tonight? Is that where you've dressed up nice?
That's what it is. Yeah.
Right. Fair enough. And we're also joined tonight by George Dodds.
Evening.
Evening, George. How are you?
Not too bad. I've been enjoying your live bit at the start.
It went a little bit wrong, but we're here now.
Just a wee bit, just to prove it is live.
And also, I don't know how to introduce this man. Speed rider, grass track rider, motocross rider. He does downhill. He does media stuff, commentary. He does absolutely everything. He's got his own blog. He's a very, very busy man, and I'd like to thank him for taking the time out to come on and chat about, one, why Speedway is failing, and two, how we can fix it. So please, ladies and gentlemen, warm welcome, Paul Bowen.
Now then, how are we doing, Greg? And T?
Not too bad, Paul. I've been joined by a cat.
Yeah. You must have the internet up that neck of woods, because I had live straight away. I was watching confusion there from yourself.
Yeah, we are quite high up. So how are you, Paul? You all good?
Yeah, all good, mate. All good here.
I was doing a little bit of research about you before I came on, and I found that, as you said about up here in Scotland, that Bowen is Gaelic for small man.
I am only 5'9", mate. So
only 5'9".
5'10", I tell the girls though.
Yes, and if anyone wants to go, Paul, you were on a Channel 4 show, weren't you?
Yeah, one on First Dates. 4 years ago now, I think 3 or 4 years ago. Wow. Yeah, on the telly.
So you've had a bit of fame on that, and you also went viral. You ended up on the Lad Bible on Facebook. You want to tell us about that?
So I used to do a lot of funny videos, Snapchats, stuff like that, and basically this is not my real hair. So it's basically a wig, and it was a new sort of concept out at the time, and I thought, this is going to be funny. I'll Snapchat this, because if it's terrible, everyone will have a right laugh, and if it's good, it'll help a few lads out. And turns out it was actually really good, and it went really viral, and it did really well, and now a lot of people wear wigs.
I think the funniest part of, I mean, you hear about people wearing wigs, totally going off the subject of Speedway, but you hear of people wearing wigs, and especially a comedian, Mickey Flanagan, who calls it a bastard of a wig. When you see a man with a bastard of a wig, which is very obvious that it's shit. But they're very, you can't tell unless you told us. But I do, the funniest part of that video for myself was the hair products that you bought in the supermarket. How much did you spend on hair products?
It was a full-on 90 quid. But it's stuff I didn't think of it. I just went in like hair dryer, brush, all the different sprays and stuff you need, shampoo. I never had shampoo. We just went from my arse straight over my head.
Absolutely brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And talking about the fact that you're busy at the moment, how did you get on at the latest BSN meeting at Newcastle?
Thanks, mate. Well, story about that. One of my first, I actually had to go in the championship. I only had 3 National League meetings, and I went in the championship for some unknown reason. It was dark, so I just assumed it was like a 6:30, 7 o'clock start. Turns out it's 4, and I was still at home at 2 o'clock, so I didn't make that one.
Oh well, never mind. And your next one, when's that? When are you next scheduled to be on?
Well, BSN is actually on this Thursday in Ipswich, and they're in Glasgow on Friday. Me personally, I'm going on holiday for a week, so I'll be back for, I think it's Plymouth and Poole on the 28th and 29th, so back-to-back meetings.
Nice, good stuff. And I hope the weather's well, because it's pretty nice down there when you've got some decent weather.
Yeah.
And because we're based around the Berwick Bandits and the Bullets, are you coming up for the Bandits and Scorpions meeting?
When's that, mate? What date's that?
That'll be on the 25th of June.
No, mate. No, I'm still away. Sorry.
You're still away. Still away.
But I'll be up at some point.
It'll be good to see you. And I'm in. Oh no, you'll be away because I'm in Bellevue on the 24th, having a bit of skid round there. So I'll miss you there as well, which is a bit of a disaster. So we got you on because your video that you posted, it was last year, wasn't it? It's why Speedway Is Failing. And it received quite a lot of views and everything else like that. You just explain to us what the thought behind it was and how you came about doing it.
So basically, obviously, like for anyone that doesn't know, I got into Speedway quite late. Only got into it 7 years ago. So I'd say a fresh set of eyes that have gone into it. And as someone that's had a business, and someone that's getting new into the riding and sort of following the progression of what you would do as a Speedway rider, I started to suddenly see quite a few flaws quite early on. And I always look at stuff from a business situation. I'm one of them people so say when I go to a stadium at Speedway, I'll count all the fans and I'll see how much it is per ticket, how many roughly fans. I know how much riders are on a point. I probably have a good idea at the insurance and the rent, and I do stuff like that. It's just the way I'm programmed.
Yeah.
But from watching it from only sort of 7 years ago, you can sort of see what I explained in my chart of what is actually happening. Obviously, everyone knows Speedway is sort of declining as such. It does have its high points, but it is sort of declining. But also, it's like making a pie. You've got to feed the machine. Now, the Speedway machine at the moment, we're not feeding it enough. There's not enough riders coming into Speedway to sort of elevate it and get it more popular. We're running out of riders, basically. But then also what I noticed within the Speedway, the progression chart, which obviously that if everyone goes and watch my YouTube video, if they go and watch this and then come back and watch what
I'll put the link. I'll put the link.
Yeah, if you put the link in, you can go and watch it. And obviously, I've made everything so simple. So in my little chart that I've done, I've just made up figures just for making it up. I know I've got a few comments on it saying there's not 100,000 people watch Speedway. I know there's not 100,000, but do you know what I mean? It's just fake numbers, but to give you the idea. Now, obviously, in an ideal situation, you would start with your amateur leagues, Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then you would slowly go up National League, Championship, Premiership. And along with that line of progression, you would also get a value with that. So if you was going to, say, watch a Premiership rider, you know, you're going watching, you know, the Aces, for instance, which is like Max Frick and Brady Kurtz, you pay a premium to watch that. So say you pay 20 quid or whatever it is. I don't know how much a ticket is now. So you watch that. But then you've also got the likes of, say, like Charles Wright in that team. So you're paying 25 quid to watch Charles Wright. But actually, if you go down into the Championship, you can also watch Charles Wright, but pay 20 quid.
Yeah.
So you've got that element. So what you're doing, and especially it's more aimed at people like, I don't know, say Bomber. Like Bomber's an out-and-out number one in both leagues for me. You know what I mean? He's a fantastic rider.
And the entertainment value that you get from a rider
is fantastic. However, he's lowering his value, if you like, because if you're a Chris Bomber fan, you're not going to go and watch him at Peterborough and pay 25. You go to Berwick. Obviously, I know there's a travel distance in that, but he's devaluing himself. But then what you're also doing, you're not only devaluing the product of Speedway, you're also now, if you're a National League rider and you want to sort of creep up into the Championship, say yourself, Greg.
Yeah.
How are you expected to compete with Bomber?
Exactly. Yeah.
And the gap is this big now. You know, a prime example now is there's quite a few riders, you know, and I don't want to really name any names, but I'm sure everyone can think of names of riders of National League that are running number one, not running 3, 5. They're running number one in the National League, so that they're at the top of the game of that National League. There's no one that can, you know, they're going out there 12, 15 points. That's what they're scoring. They're going into the Championship, struggling to score and getting sacked, or they are giving up because it's just too much. You can't go from winning all the time to losing all the time. So, and there's plenty of riders out, without naming any names, I'm sure you can all think of some. This year alone, there's been, I'd say, 3 so far. But then what that does, you say, right, well, there's no number ones left in the National League. Right, well, we're going to have to go down a level. We're going to have to see who's down. And there's a rider right now, all right? I'll name him, all right? You know, young Harry McGuirk. Fantastic rider. Not quite ready for the Championship. Personally, yet. Joe Alcock, you know, he got his ride on foot. You know, big shout out to Joe as well. Personally, not quite ready for the Championship. So you're just going, and then what you're doing then is you're going down and down and down. And what happens then? You get someone like me. Well, I've rode Championship, but, you know, do you get people that are so far away? So when you go and watch Championship race, you'll watch Bomber, and then you watch the other ride. It'd been enough lapping him.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So the progression of a young lad, it stops at the Championship. And then if you notice the age in the Championship, what are they? I don't know what the average age is. Would you say 30?
Yeah.
Pushing. And then each year that's going to go up. And if you don't do anything about it.
Yeah. No, I've done a guest booking already this year in the Championship for Edinburgh, and I was surprised that when I went into changing rooms that I was kind of in my own age bracket, whereas I go into changing rooms with the bullets, and it's like, you know, I'm telling about something that's happened, and they haven't got a clue. They don't even get my. It's a nightmare to tell a joke in the National League because they don't get your references. Yeah. they haven't got a clue. I said something the other week about Jennifer Aniston, and I says, I would say Jennifer Aniston, probably the most attractive woman ever in the 90s. And who's that? Like, you're kidding me, man. But I know I fully agree with what you're saying there. But you're saying that there has to be a flip side to it. What's Paul Bowen's way of changing this?
Well, obviously, like I said, the main word that I use is structure. Yeah. So that's structure within the leagues, But also, which I've not mentioned in that video, there needs to be structure within the actual, before I get shot here, the BSPA as such. Now, this is no disrespect, I'll say there's no disrespect to Rob or anything like that. Because I think what they do is actually, it's a thankless task. The money that, he puts his hours in, I'm sure he does, and he probably gets nothing but slack. And people it's easy to slate someone when you're not doing it. And when you work 9 to 5 or whatever, and you come home and you have your hour rant and go back to bed. So please don't take this as like, he needs sacking or anything like that. But in any business, or I always say it like, if you're sailing a ship, the captain doesn't go downstairs. So like Rob, for instance, he has got interests in Scunthorpe. Do you know what I mean? So obviously he's going to gear it to the championship. He's going to. Whereas personally, what needs to happen for me is someone at the top needs to be someone corporate, loves, is into Speedway, probably a retired or someone that's close to retirement, so doesn't really need the money, because ideally, if you wanted someone proper to elevate this sport, you would have to pay a lot of money, and Speedway hasn't got that money, but it needs to go in that right direction. And then under that, you would have maybe, a director, marketing, finance, again, nothing to do with any of the leagues below. So you would have an independent body running Speedway that know what they're doing. Not when I say no, the current people know what they're doing, but you would need someone that is directly in marketing, someone that's directly in operations, someone that's directly in league structure and the progression of Speedway, someone that's into market research, someone that basically business people. Speedway is a business. No matter what, if it is a sport, but it's also a business. Football has got, and F1 has got some people in there that, they're clever people, and they're bringing the sport on. So I know it's going to be a hard task to do, but you would need something like that. Then
for an example, Paul, and George, I'll bring you on shortly. I've got a good question for yourself. But say for example, Ty Woofenden, who has went from running about in if you've read his book, running about in an old post van, running it in red diesel, and he's now, I would say, he's pretty well off. I wouldn't mind being a pound behind his back. He is a business. He's what he does, and he's done that through advice, and he's been shown what to do, and everything he does is similar to what you're doing as well. He's started doing these the vlogging. A man like that, when he retires from Speedway, if he was to say, I'm going to leave Poland and I'm going to come back to Britain, and I'm going to sort it out. He's already given the things about the 5-year plan that he had to bring the team Great Britain on to get gold medal, which eventually it happened. You see that he's taken Dan Bewley under his wing, and Dan Bewley's always been good, but it's almost like when Ty got a hold of him, he's went woof. He's in the Grand Prix now due to the fact the Russians never got in, but he's still holding his own. And so if Ty can do that with a rider, which I would say probably you'd be on the same level of getting that going, and at the same time working on himself and his own business and getting things going. Do you think someone like Ty would be able to save British Speedway?
I don't think it's not something like I say. Like I say, it's not so much saving it, because the sport will always run. It's just where you want that sport to go. If we want Speedway to be bigger, be an outfit like F1 or being like MotoGP or whatever, it does need elevating with your likes of Ty. Now, funny enough, like Ty got me into Speedway. I watched him on Eurosport and thought, this guy's cool as anything. It looks mint riding a bike. I'll have a bit of that. And you need people like that to bring you in. And it's funny you say about Ty's YouTube channel and his professional outfit. What I find as well, like a lot of people are busy, slagging off the promoters, but a lot of riders don't do a lot to help themselves. Do you know what I mean? There's so many opportunities for all the riders out there to have a YouTube channel, to create good content. Do you know about bringing younger people in? Like Speedway riders need to be on TikTok, Snapchat, Instagram. Not especially the good riders. They're not doing much in between races. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Create some content. Hire someone that's a young lad, 300 quid a week or whatever, to follow them around with a camera and promote the sport.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not. There's so many. We could be here all night. There's so many little things that you could do to improve Speedway. But to actually find where you're going, you need a structure, which is what in my video is you need. So you need that structure at the top with the employees, if you want to call them, or the directors of Speedway. But also there needs to be some structure within how you go on about Speedway, starting out, getting better, and going on with the leagues.
Yeah.
But also it needs to come down to the paying public realising for £20 or £15, whatever the cost is, this is the level I'm going to get for that money. You can't spend a tenner. I keep hearing a tenner. Speedway's a tenner, and expect to see Chris Bonmar-Harris.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? The guy.
Yeah.
You think, do what I do in the crowd. You think that guy's a professional rider. He'll won X amount for turning up. There's 14 of them. Add it up.
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean? So
exactly.
So I think unfortunately, the way I see it, I would probably actually lose fans for a while they had to adjust that actually championship racing, for instance, which at the moment is the biggest problem for the structure. You can't pay your same and see that quality.
Yeah.
Either the top end of the championship, like Poole, Leicester, need to say, actually, we're Premiership. We want the top level. And then Newcastle, Birmingham, actually, we want to be in the National League.
Exactly, yes.
Do you know what I mean? And again, I don't know why, like in football, we play like a team sport. We pay similar to football. Why is there no relegation and promotion?
Yep. Exactly that.
Why was Poole allowed to suddenly say, you know what, we're going to Championship?
I know, yeah.
Which, to me, personally, I can understand why they have, because it makes business sense. You're paying riders less money. If you was getting a kitchen and it was a guy says, "Oh, if I work on a Wednesday, it's $4,000, but if I work on a Thursday, it's $7,000."
Yeah, exactly that.
I know which one I'll be choosing.
and it got to bring you in this, George. You were saying before we came on that the promoters used to be, at Berwick especially, would be worried if the crowds dropped to 3,000 in a night, stuff like that. I mean, you've been watching Speedway. I know you said that you were 4 years old when Berwick opened in '68. You'll have seen a vast change in the sport. And what do you think the biggest change has been the reason why we've lost the crowds?
Well, when it comes down to it, it's not giving people what they want, isn't it? It's I mean, I lived in Manchester for a long time. It's where I fell out of love with Speedway, because up until then I'd watched it, I'd reported on it, but suddenly Bellevue were racing on a Monday and I worked on a Monday night, and that was the end of it. So you can't really expect people to put their lives around what you want. You've got to give them what they want at the time they want to see it. Nobody knew that the internet was coming. Nobody knew satellite TV was coming. There was, I just said, up until the 1980s, if you wanted to watch Speedway, you had to go to a ground. You had to pay your money. You had to watch it. You had no choice. Videos, maybe, in the early days. But suddenly you can watch 5-6 meetings a week without actually leaving your sofa and putting anything into the sport. So there is no real incentive. I mean, and I think the BSN's a tremendous deal. What I don't really understand is how clubs expect to make money out of streaming their own meetings every week. A match of the week BSN, that's a hell of a selling point. It's something worth watching. But why would you choose to go to Armadale on a Friday night when you can watch it from your home for £11.99?
I disagree with you there, John. I think it helps people out to go and watch it. Obviously, the ideal situation was if BSN was a free-to-watch service, or any Speedway was a free-to-watch service, because to get it out there would be fantastic. Obviously, there's a cost to stuff like BSN. I've seen how much they spend. It does cost it, so you have to charge it. But I think it brings people into the sport, and if you can sort of get people into it and say, and focus on how good the crowd is, and the crowd get jolly, you want to go. So I think all it does is just keep you in the loop more. Especially if you're a season ticket holder, it doesn't matter whether you go or you watch it. But what it might do is bring a few more that watch it. Like, look at football. People still go to football. F1, MotoGP, the stands are still full, and it's on telly.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So you take other sports such as rugby, ice hockey. They probably more like Speedway. Where I think football's a ridiculous beast, and nobody ever foresaw Premier League football taking off. And it's one of the reasons I think that some clubs struggle. You look at, say, Poole. There was a time when Poole Speedway was the big speedway, the big sport in the South Coast. Bournemouth Football Club were 4th Division club, but now even Bournemouth, they take the sponsors, they take the crowd, they take the attention away from Poole, and Poole is now, Speedway used to be the big summer sport, and it's not anymore, unfortunately.
No, that's right.
Cricket reinvented itself. Rugby league switched to summer in the northwest and Yorkshire. All of which took away from Speedway, I think.
We've had a comment on the channel saying about that promotion relegation was tried before and it didn't work, and I could see that happening because it could be a problem. Say, for instance, Edinburgh. I think that was one of the ones a while ago. It was Edinburgh Wolverhampton.
Yep.
Was the teams that were going up against that, and you just knew before that started that was going to be a fixed meeting, because there is no way that, one, you've got travel to go up to Edinburgh. You've got Edinburgh's obviously run by, it's the dog track there. If they'd be allowed to do meetings here, meetings there, if they ended up making it to the playoffs, they'd have how many meetings they would have. So they'd be very restricted on what they could do there, which is unfortunate. But I'm sure there would be some kind of way that we could figure it out and make something happen. And like you're saying about teams dropping down at the National League, Paul, you'll know this yourself. Say, for instance, you were riding the Championship and you were getting hammered meeting after meeting after meeting, and you were only in the Championship, and you were like, I'm going to give up. I'm going to put this in. And then you thought, well, I'll tell you what, I'll drop down to the National League level and try build my confidence back up again. Why don't clubs do that? If they're struggling financially, drop it down. It's gonna be less hard hitting on the pocket.
Yeah, see, but that's the way I kind of see it. But then also the other side is like you have that dream of, whoa, we're going up, which, do you know what I mean, would be a goal. So as much as it's for the team coming down, like, oh, we're going down, and they might lose the fans, at the same time, they've not got to pay the riders nowhere near as much.
Exactly.
So,
I think though, if you look at other sports,
go on, sorry, George.
If you look at other sports, and rugby league's a great example here, they try to ring fence by getting rid of promotion and relegation from the Super League, and then they brought it back. But you cannot build a team in a second tier that at the end of that season will be good enough to take on a full-time professional outfit in the Super League. They'll lose every time, and by and large, the team that gets promoted comes straight back down, with very, very few exceptions.
But if that team worked on finances, maybe, because obviously when you're going into that, you would build your team around as well do you want to go up? So if you was a poor club, you're not going to bring in the best riders to go up because you haven't got the money. So if you've got the money to get, say, the best riders, I'm not saying you've got the money to be in the championship, but you've got better money than someone that's lower end at the National League. But also, really, it would again fall with the Speedway that if you do get the promotion, by the way, here's £20,000, for instance. So there would be a pot of money, for instance. I don't know how much that figure could be. I don't know what
has to be worth something, though.
Yeah, but if you was going up, you would think, well, actually, yeah, here's this pot of money. Teams could probably fix it, go up, go down, but realistically, if it was set at a right figure where you could, well, actually, we can invest that and we can get these better riders because we've gone up and we've got this money, especially going really from the Championship to the Premiership, because the Premiership should be the top flight of Speedway. So you should see those top riders. So really, you should get that top money to elevate the clubs to want to go in there. Like, again, I know, like, say, George, you use rugby, but I suppose I use the football kind of analogy. Like, Chorley near me, they were trying to get up because if they got through to that certain round, boom, here's a massive check from the football. And do you know what I mean? And they're chasing that. Whether again we could do an FA Cup of Speedway, so it starts with the National League and goes up. Yeah. You know what I mean? Something like that, and they win a bit of money. I don't know.
I think as well. I think one of the weaknesses of Speedway is something that suits riders, but perhaps doesn't suit fans, which is in most sports you are a player for one club in the world. Whereas in Speedway, you're not necessarily even one club in the same country. And it makes it difficult to then do anything. I mean, it takes out of the equation something like a European Speedway Cup or something like that, because you just literally have the same riders riding in Sweden, in Poland, in Denmark, who ride in the and they now ride in the championship in this country, which I think is a huge weakness.
Yeah, again, which kind of goes back to sort of my video is why would you pay for the same rider in two different leagues? I'm a big believer of a sort of squad system, really, where the team should really be 9 riders, but your 8 and your 9 are your National League riders, are your 50-40%, so that they come in, everyone goes up a position. Yeah, you might say, well, that's a weaker team. Well, yeah, it's a weaker team. If David Beckham fell over and broke his ankle, he's not in the football team. It's a weaker team. It's just the way the cookie crumbles. Do you know what I mean? The team that wins is a team that's the most consistent, doesn't fall off, doesn't get injured.
The other thing that I would like to add to that, just putting it out there, is the difference in Speedway. I've got a mate of mine who plays rugby at a professional level, and he's just signed. I think it's another 3-year deal up at Edinburgh. Something that we don't really see that much of in Speedway, and you have to think of that as like a fan favourite. So, say for instance, we've signed Chris Harris at Berwick for the 2022 season, and everybody's like, "Oh, quality." But what would it be like if you were to say, "Oh, I've just signed Chris Harris on a 3-year deal to keep him there, fan favourite"? You get people that come to watch certain riders, like you've said, people come for Berwick. I would quite like to know fans that maybe went to Berwick Speedway in 2007 when Chris Harris won the Grand Prix at Cardiff, and they maybe stopped going after a few years if things were getting bad and Berwick was getting beaten, whatever. And then for 2022, the years after COVID's happened, they saw in the local paper, ex-GP rider, British champion, blah blah blah, Chris Harris is signed for Berwick. They've said, tell you what, he's met, say for instance, a guy, he's met a woman who's never had a Speedway before, let's take the kids along. And then they turn up because Chris Harris has come back again. They enjoy that season at the Speedway, and then say for instance, Chris goes off in signs for, I don't know, Redcar next again season. Is there a possibility that family is going to go, it was all right, but I was only really going to watch Bomber? is that something that plays in it? Because riders don't often stay around with the same clubs nowadays.
No, I mean, you get a testimonial now. It's for doing 10 years in Speedway. It's very rarely for doing 10 years at the same club. And it is a weakness. I'm sure that one of the reasons Berwick's crowds are better at the moment, Chris Harris is obvious, but the fact that you've got Leon, Mason, yourself, I mean, we know just when the Bullets were reformed, suddenly people in the Boulders were coming out to watch Greg, to watch. It's a local team, and there is a bit of a connect there between the town and the team again, which is fairly unusual in Speedway these days.
It's funny you say, George, about like Greg. Obviously, like Greg's another character like myself, and I think a lot of riders are missing that character. Like I've seen Greg, like me and you, like when we win a race. Do you know what I mean? We are generally pumped, like we're at the crowd, we're waving. Do you know what I mean? Like I watched one of the new, like I can't remember who was it that won a really good race.
Max Clegg, wasn't it?
Didn't even
do the lap.
Do you know what I mean? The riders need a bit of. I think they need a bit of tuition, really, to interact with the crowd.
Yeah. And I will say this, for example, I've not seen it that much in other clubs, probably because I'm not watching, because like the team I'm up against has just won the race. But when one of our riders wins a race for the Bullets, or even the Bandits, for instance, if I'm in the pits that night, if a rider comes round and has won, Flinty is standing going like that, so that they'll do a lap. And I think that they should get a slap in the back of the head if they do this.
Yeah, that's it.
Because that's probably, in my eyes, that's more disrespectful than not even going round. Because how ignorant is that? If I was driving in the car and I saw you coming towards me, Paul, and I just looked through you and put my hand up like that, you'd go, "What's his fucking problem?" It is horrendous. And I think, like, if I win a race at Berwick, I'm just saying it's usually quite spectacular because I've not done it from the tapes. I will go around and I'll, hit the race jacket, bang my chest like that, get the crowd up and going, get them wound up, and you see them all screaming and they're clapping their hands and all that. But
I don't know if you watched that video. I got second, right, and because it was a 5-1. I just about grabbed second. I got off my bike, started going to the crowd. They're all up. Do you know what I mean?
Yep, exactly.
Second. I'm a National League rider. I'm not,
I'll say it because, like, you probably don't want to say it, Paul, but I'll say it because, you've been vocal about it in the past, and in the way that you when you stopped riding because you were saying, "Oh, I'm too old and I'm just doing National League." So I'll say it as well. Do you not wish that me and like guys like myself and you were better riders to promote the sport? Because they're just going to think, people who don't really know the sport too well, they see the National Development League, they're going to think, "Oh, they just have a shot. They don't really, it's not that fast." It still balls out. I'm still doing stuff like when you're on the bike and I'm on the bike, one wrong move, wheelchair death. It's not slow, but the fact that myself and you haven't, maybe because we've left it too late in life, and obviously my comeback, I'm never going to get to the rider that I could have been. If we were like the Jason Doyles of British Speedway, up there like that, even like Charles Wright and Craig Cook, if we went on if they did the social media the same way as me and you do it, do you think that would open it up a bit more?
I do. That's what I'm saying. I think, like I said, there's loads of little problems everywhere, and how to elevate this. So, like I said to you, riders are in this mix of a problem. Do you know what I mean? They're not elevating the sport to what, they're not promoting. If I was doing it full time, do you know what I mean? I would be promoting Speedway, promoting the sport, making as much content as I can, being named as much as I can, because at the end of the day, I want to sell my merchandise and I want to promote Speedway. So the more people come, the more I get paid.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean?
Putting business a show plan. On. Yep.
Do you know what I mean? And like I said, I'm a I'll open say I'm one of the fan favourites at Bellevue. You're one of the fan favourites at Berwick, because I put the time out there to speak to the crowd, to showboat, and I think there could be a lesson for riders how to showboat, but I think they're scared of the reaction, and you know what I mean, them going away and run, everyone just sit there like that. I think maybe they're scared of that, or I don't know.
It doesn't matter, because if they did do it, it wouldn't be. But I remember at Kent last year, and it was absolutely teeming it down with rain, and there wasn't a lot of fans at that meeting. I think people had got put off with the weather, or they went inside, but there was not many people out at all. And coming out the second bend, I won a race, and I went round the victory lap just for a laugh because there was hardly anybody there, and I was waving at everybody and doing all that, and then I waved at there was a couple standing just off the second bend at Kent, and I waved at them, and they never waved back, so I stopped the bike and revved it like that, and they turned round and looked, and I went, and then they just started clapping like that, and then like went back to the pits, and everybody's going, "You're mental," and then the end of the night, it was so well during the meeting, I got there was a delay at the start of the race, and it was so wet, and the front of my suit and my race colour was like saturated with dirt. It was just caked in dirt. And you know the banking, there's a big grass banking where everybody stands. I took a big runner and slid down it head first like that. And you had people in the crowd shouting again, because they missed it with the cameras. So I ran away back up and I done it again. Well, I could have been pulled out the meeting because there was a metal pole sticking out the ground about that high, and I just missed it. But it's stuff like that. You have to get the crowd going, and I try tell like my teammates, the Bullets, and not in a disrespectful way at all, but don't focus too much on the old people at the Speedway, because they're the ones that complain every week, and I'll not be back to watch this, it's shite. They'll be back next game week, right? Doesn't matter about them. Interact with the kids.
I was going to say, mate, one of the things I'd always do is on every lap or whatever, I'd always pick out like a 5, 6, 7-year-old kid that's not really got a clue what he's looking at me, not got a clue what's going on, and I'll always give him thumbs up.
Yeah.
And they're shocked by it. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, exactly. And that's what I try to tell them, because
whereas I did that to George and he went like that.
Man, you're Bellevue, man. No respect.
The kids, and I cannot stress this point enough, is if we look after the kids, they're going to go to school, right? So say they're in a classroom with 70 other kids, and they do like the teacher's like, "What did you get up to the weekend?" And I did this, I did that, and this little kid goes, "Oh, out to the Speedway." And oh, what was that? What's that? It's motorbikes. They go around in circles really, really fast. They don't have any brakes. Someone told me that they do 0 to 60 quicker than a Formula 1 car. And then there'll be another little kid who'll go, oh, I quite like bikes. I'll go to that. Brings a full family in, and that's how it starts to grow. But if you don't speak to the kids, I am always, if ever at Berwick and you hang about long enough, at George, you'll have seen it. Everyone's showered and out, and I'm still walking about my Kevlars on, speaking to everybody, because I'm not going to be doing it that much longer, but I want everybody to feel like they're a part of it. I don't see myself as, because I have been with friends that have come to the Speedway that have never really been before. They're like, it's quite weird because it's like you're famous, and then you go to work on Monday and you're just a normal person again. You got people wanting your autograph, and I'm like, well, yeah, I'm kind of just not wanting to be that famous person, even though them kids looking up at you, that's Greg Blair, is the same as another kid going, that's Ronaldo. In a kid's mind, you're on the same level.
Did you just?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. Yes, I did.
On that list, I'll save that one out.
I don't think anybody else would have made
Ronaldo.
But you know what I mean? That kid doesn't know too much about like how, like I've got like 1,000 followers on Instagram, and Ronaldo's got the most in the world. He's the most followed person on Instagram. But that kid that's like 8-year-old doesn't really know the difference, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Because
and again, Greg, it needs to be marketed at sort of kids, young family. Like no respect to like say like George, people that older. We've got that fan base. You're hooked almost.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? As much as you might say like, oh, this and that. Bring back the 2 valves and stuff. We've got you. So you need to always market for the generation that's coming in. Mm-hmm. And when that gets old, you go back down and you go back down and you go back because you need to bring that in that new wave. Like Speedway GP hasn't even got a TikTok.
I know.
Do you know what I mean? And everyone's like, what the bloody hell do you need a TikTok for? Do you know what I mean?
Because all the kids are on it.
Them kids that are 9, 10, 12 are going to watch TikToks. And when they're 18, they're going to go, I've seen that on TikTok, I'm going.
Yeah, exactly. And the kids thing, going back to you as well, George, picking on you. But if you were, for instance, if you had your program in your hand, would you be offended if I didn't sign it? You know what I mean? You're not chasing after riders for us to sign it. But then again, this is in what I would see. If I was at a meeting and say Ty was there, say Ty came to Berwick Speedway one night for some meeting, whatever else like that, and I thought, oh, I'd get a selfie with Ty being at Berwick. I would have more respect for him if he spent more time with the kids than coming out to take a selfie with some 30-year-old loser. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying that people are losers for wanting a selfie, but it's just...
I got a selfie with Ty. I'm 30-odd years old.
Well, you know, I said that. I'm like, Ronaldo, you're a loser.
No,
but it's right enough.
Those of us who predate the internet don't really understand, perhaps. Don't
really care.
The marketing ability. Well, I got to the point where I can actually use a phone now, so I'll take that as a win. It is for the younger people to lead the younger people. And it is one of the problems. Most clubs are run by retired businessmen who are probably my age and more. I think that's what marks out perhaps Berwick and the Courtneys. They are, I mean, they're not just ex-riders, they're recent ex-riders, and they've always had a vision of where to take it, but dragging other people along is a problem.
Yeah,
I don't think there's anything wrong with having someone of age as a man, like, you know, anyone of age, because you've got the experience as well. Do you know what I mean? Don't you know, I'm not saying at all that you need to fill it full of 30, 40-year-old people to run the sport. You know, there's people like yourself, George, that have got a lot of experience to say, well, hang on a minute, we can't do this, because we still can't forget about older people in Speedway.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's a huge fan base. Do you know what I mean? You can't just say, all right, we're doing this, and you know what I mean, you neglect the fans that you've got. It's just tweaking it slightly, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you've mentioned football before, and one of the great things they did was they reinvented football from being, the depths of the 80s, the sort of hooliganism, awful stadiums, and now there's a sort of young, middle class fan base, men and women. Whereas it used to be a working class male sport. Not everybody likes to change, but the numbers don't lie.
Well, that's it. And I think Speedway's been held back in some respects. Like, you look at a Speedway bike now and look at one 10 years ago, they look the same.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if you look at a motorbike, it looks totally different. And I don't get why there's a restriction on research and development within Speedway to attract Honda, BMW, KTM, and instead of that, we've got two sheds that are made in Czechoslovakia with some sandcast eyes going in. This is what we want.
I don't say too much about the change, because I remember an interview with Mark Webber, and he was at a Speedway meeting one night, and he's a fan of the Speedway.
Mm.
And someone had said to him, like, what's your thing? What do you get about the Speedway? And instead of saying the usual, the noise and the smell, he just said the fact that they're just that raw. Mm-hmm. There's nothing on them, and that they've not changed them in that lot. I mean, they have, but to look at, like you say, they've not changed a hell of a lot. And I think that to say that, that is true, because there is nothing to them. They've not changed that much to them. They work. They do the bloody job. So I like the fact that they're still to look at 10, 15, 20 years ago when the, ever since laydowns came in, really, they've not changed at all.
I think it's always been slightly strange. Yeah, well, I think it's always been a slightly strange disconnect that you've got a motorcycle-based sport that doesn't particularly attract motorcyclists as fans. It's always sort of marketed itself towards families and this, that, and the other. But I think when you go to sort of Superbikes, MotoGP, people are following the name of the bikes. You don't get many people who follow Jawa or Westlake back in the day or whatever. It is something that holds it back. And of course, if you had that competition of the bike people, then you would be getting development. I mean, I wonder if there's an opening for the electric bikes. I
was going to say, George, personally, for me, I think that's the way forward for Speedway. I know people. I know, Greg. I know for a lot of people, he's
noiseless
leaving.
Bikes in the city centres.
But do you know what I mean? It's no lie that we're going to an era now of vegans and sorry if any vegans, but environmentally friendly sports, noise. Do you know what I mean? Electric really would open up Speedway, and not only that, it's a sport that's done in 4 minutes a night. The batteries can hack it.
Yeah.
So as a sport to push electric, Speedway is actually a fantastic fit.
But also, you'd like to hope you could attract the development money as well, because what a showcase that you can get a 0 to 60 off on a shell surface. What a great asset.
I would be
sell electric bikes.
And like I say, I know a lot of people say, "Oh, but the noise of the bikes." If anyone ever go to a mountain bike or a cycle race, and you listen to the crowd. You can literally shout at the rider. So like these fans that actually do shout at riders. Do you know what I mean? You would go around in your helmet and hear that. Hear the fans. So the fan would be more engaged to shout and scream rather than sit there and... Do you know what I mean? It's...
I'm just thinking of the fan boost as Blair comes round the second bend, and Kenny Tate and his mates give you the fan boost.
I would agree with it if it was. What I would agree with it if they did, if they just had the normal leagues that we've got, and then there was the old upright league, if they'd done that, or an upright championship. I don't know if it was just an individual or if they could. I would doubt they'd be able to knock teams together. But if they'd done that you could spectate and go and watch it, an upright league, and if they had an electric league, Speedway E, say the Speedway E championship.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go for that.
I would be, as long as they didn't just if they took the Speedway bikes as we know it away altogether, and I think that would be too much.
Yeah, no, I think there'd have to be a transition. And to be fair, Greg, I think what you'd have to try and do is, obviously, they're in development now. If my electric bike beat your Speedway bike, then that's when it's, well, actually, why am I riding this? I want to ride this.
Yeah.
Yes, but Paul, you've never beat me, so...
I've not, mate. I've not. All right. Just put that in there.
Yes!
It's funny, someone's put in the comments here, I can see Honda got involved in the 90s and walked away because it wasn't marketable, which I get. Now, if
that's Marty, one of the Shady brothers.
Now, if that was electric, you've got Honda, Yamaha, KTM. They're all pushing electric. They're all going for that. Now, if you made, like I say, the first, like I say, maybe another league on the electric, would Honda, KTM have a go at that? And like saying, someone's put, if it went electric,
there's certainly a story that's
But would you create a different one?
They would certainly hear. It would be quite funny because they'd have to run it after 9 o'clock because they'd hear me coming into the third bend going, "Fuck!" or even you see it all the time. That when a rider's going over the start-finish line and he gets past and he drops his head like that, he's not just doing that. there's a lot of words coming out as you go over the start-finish line, which is drowned out by the bike, and I've done it many times.
But again, though, adds to it.
It does. It does. By the way, just saying that it still says up in the top screen scheduled, so I don't even know if we're live. It must be.
We're live 55:24 and counting.
Yeah.
55:24. What time did we start it?
55:30. Yeah. 9.
Yeah, you're gonna have to get better internet in Galashiels.
Hey, Jedburgh.
Just gave you a chance.
Come on then, George. As an older person, what would you say is with my? Would you agree with the structure, what I'm saying, or would you sort of, as an older person, see things a little bit different?
No, well, probably, but I mean, strangely enough, the structure is not dissimilar to where it was in its supposed golden years, the sort of 60s and 70s, where you had tracks open all the time, reasonably big crowds, but what you had riders who had to choose which league they were riding in. They weren't doubling up in both. So you had a string of riders who had to make the decision: would they be second strings in the top league or superstars in the National League, like Mark Courtney, John Jackson, people like that, chose to stay down, earn the money down in the second league. What they weren't allowed to do was be number one in both. And of course, in those days, well, they said the second tier was a British league. It wasn't. It was full of New Zealanders and Australians. But there were no Danes, there were no Swedes. So you had a level through. By the same token, you could buy a bike for 50 quid in the pub on the Saturday night and be racing it the next Saturday night. And coming out of hospital on the Sunday after. But I mean, society's far different. It's a far different world that the sport's trying to keep a hold in. And of course, the money is in Poland, the money is in Sweden, which weren't options in those days. You had to ride British Speedway because that was the league that paid you the money.
I've seen before people say like, "Oh, Speedway is not working. It's the same 15 heats. It's not working." But it shows that it does work. It shows in them countries, it does work. In the good old days, it worked. But it's not the product that's wrong, is it?
It's not. I mean, if you get 4 reasonably similar talented riders on reasonably similar machines on a well-prepared track, and that doesn't matter whether it's a National Junior League, a Northern Junior League, Championship, Premiership. If you get a good race, it's still a hell of a sport to watch. The problem is you don't normally get 15 well-balanced races in any given meeting. You never did. The people who tell you that every race was glorious in the 70s are not really telling the truth. I think we all agree Ivan Major was probably one of the greatest speedway riders ever. Didn't win many from the back, did it mostly from the gate. Had a pretty poor record trying to overtake people, particularly in World Finals. So it was never as good as they made it, and now is not as bad as some people make out. The difference is people have different things to do with their money.
Yeah, and that is the thing is there's a lot of choice now, isn't there, available to people? Like you
still get bad football games. You get bad football. You get. I watch quite a bit of rugby and Six Nations. Some of the games I'm like, I'm no watching this. You'll get to the first half and it's like, nah, this is, and you actually feel bad for the fans that have paid a fortune to go and sit and watch that kind of thing. And it's the same. Is there any sport out there that you're guaranteed 100% entertainment every time? Because it's not all that. And I think that Speedway,
but I still think in Speedway you'll at least out there in 15, you'll at least get one. Do you know what I mean? Newcastle got battered the other night, but there was 2 good races in that.
Which is good for Newcastle.
Yeah.
But do you know what I mean? There's always a good race in that 15. So that's the only good thing in it with Speedway. All right, that race for Pony, but there's another one coming up in 2 minutes.
Aye, yeah. It's quite aye. That is the other thing, and like you say, it was if you're turning up just to watch one heat of Speedway, it was awful. But you're right. You'd
Then
be
again, you could spend 90 minutes at a football match and only see one decent free kick in it.
Aye, exactly that.
People would sit there for 90 minutes and watch it.
I think one of the big things nowadays is it's so easy to if you want to criticise something, it's so easy to make your voice heard that people can get the impression that everybody hates what they're watching.
Well,
Whereas
that's
actually,
it.
the vast majority go home on a Saturday night quite happy with what they've seen.
So they'll never go on BSN, and I posted. Craig will see my story the other day. Actually, I posted like I must get the most comments on BSN, and I get I'm a very Marmite person, but I'll Lee and Haley and all the other gang, they do a really good job, and they'll get a few comments. They're such a great. I'll look at all the comments. I'll get like 15, 20 comments. Half of them are like, "Get that lad off the telly," and then the other one is like, "He's the best thing I've seen all night." So, do you know what I mean?
It's funny you say that, Paul, because when Kyle Bickley was dropped out the Berwick team, there was obviously the Speedway forums, which I very rarely go on, just because I can't be arsed. And well, it was only because James alerted me to it, so I went on, and it was the chat that was opened up a thing about Kyle being dropped from the team, this, that, and everything else, and then my name got brought in it, and then I started getting slagged off. I hadn't done anything. I'd done
your fault.
So yeah, Kyle gets dropped from the team. A chat appears. Someone says, "Oh, I thought they would have used Greg Blair or Luke Krang." Now, Crangy is a year younger than me, and they never mentioned anything about Crangy being in his 30s and past it, but they chucked it on me, and it's like I'm not bothered. I think when I was 18. 19, I used to look at the forums and people would always say, "Oh, he's out of control, he's never going to do anything, blah blah blah," and that used to affect me, and I used to hate it. But now I'm probably the same as you, Paul. It's quite funny.
Yeah, I
when
find
you
it hilarious.
I like seeing more comments of people that don't like me than people blowing smoke up my arse. I'm not saying that people blow smoke up my arse, but just I like if someone comments saying, "Well done tonight, Greg, you rode really well." I'm always I'll reply on a message and say, "Oh no, thank you very much." But it's always somewhere that I'm not meant to be able to see it that the bad comments appear. They wouldn't, like, people don't directly say to you, "You're shit and I don't like you, why are you still riding a bike again?" Coming from some big fat bloke who's never sat on a bike in his life. And they're the ones that do the comments.
I have never said that.
But at the end of the day, Paul, nobody would, people would say, "Oh, get him off my telly." I know the old saying is, "Oh, well, come on and have a shot yourself." But people have to have opinions. People have to have something to moan about.
You know what? I like it. Do you know what I mean? I don't, unless it's out and out bullying. Do you know what I mean? But you know what I mean? I think a lot of the time, you know what I mean? And especially if the comment, like I always say I always try and kill people with kindness that attack me.
Yeah,
just because they're like, he's done terrible. I'm like, Dave, thanks so much for watching. Can't thank you enough for taking the time. Just let me know what I can improve on. And then they'll go, actually, it was, you know what I mean? And again, goes back to what Georgie's saying. He just wants to be heard. And they just
exactly. But no, you can't be everyone's cup of tea.
No. Going back to, like I said, Greg, the Berwick, I just wanted to find this out for myself now you've said that, and it's a good point. And again, with my progression chart, why wasn't you drafted in when, as a Bullet and Berwick program, I would have said you or Luke would be the next step without getting yourself in trouble?
Without getting myself in trouble, no, I'll just be brutally honest. The reason that I never got the call up for the championship, my equipment's not good enough. And that's the top and bottom of it. I'm now at the stage I'm riding better than I ever have ridden before. I've had my engines looked at, they're older engines, and the basic fact of it is that, like, I've got two of these. They're not offsets. They're not baby offsets. They were built in 2011. They're just not up to scratch. They've lost all the horsepower that they once had. You know, you buy a car, a 20-year-old car that's maybe got 300 brake horsepower in it, 20 years of driving in it, you've lost quite a lot of ponies by then. And that's just the fact of it. My machinery is just not up to scratch. And over the winter,
I might make a comeback here. Now you're telling me this.
In all honesty, because it's a shake-up that I've needed, and I've actually recently just left my job. I'm finishing there to go off on my own, and I'm going to go out and try ride my bike more, get out in places, because I do want to make a success at this. And the other thing that I'm wanting to do is, I know that myself, the skills that I've got, I can put them in work and hopefully make myself some money. And at least if I get one decent engine and really show what I'm all about. I've got a borrow of an engine on Saturday night off a good friend of mine, and a guy that we're going to have on the show, Mitchell Davey, is going to lend me a modern engine. I say modern,
newer,
different to what I've got, newer engine, and I'm going to be having a blast on that. I'm getting an engine, get a baby offset to try at Bellevue next Friday, just because mine won't keep up with them. These things will, if the track's that deep, I'll get a maximum, but if the track's slick, it'll not. And what are championship tracks like at the moment? Very rare that you'll find a track with dirt on it. So there you go. That's the reason that I'm not in, because I'm not the equipment. I'm not myself. I'm fit as a fiddle, and I'm keen and I'm excited to go out and race. And I would, in my mind, I went out the other, I was number 8 for Berwick, a rider replacement ride for Jai Etheridge. I went out beside Chris Harris, Craig Cook, and Brock Nicol, and was coming off gate 4. And all I had in my mind is, I would love to just come off that second bend in front. And I put everything that I could into it. I used my full 2 minutes to pack a rut down, just to make sure it was good. And I made a belter of a start. But the fact that the track was that heavy tonight, I got absolutely caked. And you know what it's like when it's wet like that, you just stop dead. It just stops you in your tracks, and that was it. But in my mind, I want to go out, and I would love to. You know, you never see a number 8 do that well, but I just wanted to get out and pass them. But it never happened. But I'm keen enough, certainly keen enough. And you say you make a comeback. Would you come back, Paul? Would you have a bit?
I have got an offer at the moment, but
you've had an offer, you say?
Yeah, but it's just, for me, I love the sport. I don't like the stuff that goes with it. So the bike washing, the travel. You know what I mean? If like I enjoy the BSN, I turn up in my van, I go home. I go to work the next day. Obviously, for me, I work quite long hours. You know what I mean? I was in at 6 this morning, finished at 5. A lot of people are like, bloody hell, but like that's a normal day for me. And then and realistically, then I would, come in, probably have a chill out, have a brew, go and do my bike till sort of 7, 8, come get me tea. Do you know what I mean? And then do that again the next night, and then race it. And it just got a bit too much, really. If I worked, the problem is as well again with Speedway, like especially in the National League, I don't understand how it's managed to get in the weekday. National League riders is people at school, people at college, people at work.
Yeah.
Why is it during the week?
Exactly. No.
Do you know what I mean? You know what I mean? Ideal one, Plymouth on a Tuesday or a Thursday or whatever. It's 5.5 hours on a Tuesday. How can you get there without having the day off? And if you have if you don't have that day off, the next day in, you're going to get back at 3 o'clock in the morning and be in for, if you're a normal person, 8, 9 o'clock, you're going to be in like that. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly. I had to take time off for Plymouth. Plymouth on a Tuesday, it's like a 9, 10 hour, whatever, drive from where I am to go down there. Luckily enough that it landed quite nicely that Plymouth for my meeting is August the 9th on the Tuesday, and then Cardiff's on the 13th. so I just took that as like a holiday. So full week down in Plymouth.
And then if that got cancelled,
yeah,
and it's rescheduled,
yeah,
you've no holiday left.
That's the other side of the coin. There, you've hit the nail on the head. That's the one thing that's difficult. But I mean, I'm in a position just now where I'm very, very lucky because, like you say, you come home from work after grafting all day, get in, have your tea, and then you've got another 3-4 hours doing the bike. I've got 2 kids myself, and me and we're separated, so it's getting the kids is like, no, I'm not seeing them all the time, so I've got to work around seeing my kids, get the bike done. It's very, very difficult. I was very lucky and cannot thank enough as Kevin Little is now doing my bikes for me. Just because I think he knew himself that we were warming the bike up, and I was like, shit, I forgot to do that. And I was turning up to meetings and I'm tired because I was burning the candles at both ends. And Kev's like, look, for a fee, I'll do your bikes and we'll do this and do that. And I'm turning up to meetings now, and I'm not having to go around with a spanner while my dad's warming it up, because he's just like, 17 engine bolts loose. I'm like, yeah. It's just everything's done, and that's taken a lot of pressure off me. So for me to have Kevin helping me do that has been a massive weight off my shoulders.
Oh, that it'd be good if you could do that. Do you know what I mean? And it'd pay for someone to do that. But I say you've come lucky there, Greg. That's good. That
it's seriously lucky. So yeah, Kevin, cannot thank him enough, and we'll be getting him on here shortly. He's under the weather at the minute, and I bloody hope he's going to be all right for guesting. And for what day is it? Wednesday. Guesting on Friday up at Armadale, and Kevin knows his way around Armadale. And I could really do with him in my pit bay just to give me some
it's your new
pointers.
favourite track, isn't it, Greg?
I've had 2 meetings. I've had 2 meetings there this season.
That's good.
One meeting I got paid 12, and the other meeting I am the only rider, I think, this season in British Speedway that there was that many crashes that night that there was riders out and there was riders missing. There was only 3 riders in the in the race. I was gifted 1 point. I still never managed to cross the line. And then my van ended up in a recovery truck on the way home. And then I got home at my house. I hadn't been in my house since 7 o'clock in the morning, and the power had went off. So it was the worst Friday that I've had. So hopefully this Friday can't, as my dad said when I says I've had a guest booking at Armadale, my dad went, can't go any worse than last time, can it? That cuckoo.
Yes, it's our back door.
Oh, right, I was going to say it needs shot.
I don't actually have a cuckoo in here.
Well, I would just like to say, because it's getting on, and I know Paul gets up early in the morning for making these pies. Thanks for coming on tonight, Paul, and thanks for your telling us about what you've done. The link to the YouTube video that you've done is in the comments, is it? Sorted that out for Paul.
I'll put it in the description. It'll be in the description. Yeah,
that's perfect. And
I'll do, like I say, a proper video where I can explain things a bit better than just off the cuff tonight, and everyone will have to let me know what they think and go from there. No,
it'd be great to have you back on again.
Yes,
because it's been good fun, and it's been serious, but had a laugh at the same time, and that's what it's all about. And hope to see you sometime soon at a track. I don't know when we'll bump into each other, but I'm sure it'll be a laugh.
Maybe upline.
Yeah, maybe. That's got me thinking now. Who's asked them? And George, as always, it's been a pleasure to see you and getting your insight. But we've kind of used the old guy tonight. I hope you don't mind.
No. It comes with a job description.
Exactly. Well, I mean, you have got a photo of 1968 Berwick Speedway in the background, so we're going to have you for that one. And Paul, getting everybody organised and getting them on. You're a legend. And have you got that bike finished yet?
Well, do you know what, Greg? I've been making copious notes here of all the things I wanted to talk about. But then I really just wanted to point out that I got a comment from Graham McCleary, who said, "Why are you going at 9 o'clock? Is it because of the watershed?" And I think he might be disappointed that there wasn't the kind of swearing and the bad language that we were hoping for.
Well, Paul,
But
I
no,
never like to swear. It's rude, it's crude, and it just fucking annoys people.
Exactly. Absolutely,
Right,
absolutely. And also, if you want to know who ate all the pies, I did.
So, well, guys, it's been a pleasure, and this one's for you, Graham. We'll see you later, fuckers.
Yeah.
See you later, lads. Cheers.